not my favorite person. So please welcome Lauren to the stage.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Lauren. This is me and my pack of dogs. And as Simon said, I run digital performance management products at Akamai. I've been in tech for about 20 years. 15 of those have been in product management. A few diversions in there to other careers, but always ended up back in product. I'm not a developer, but I know developers really well because for the last 3 years, I've built a product for developers, which means I spent a lot of time talking with developers. Many of them are sitting here with us. So while I'm not a development expert, I am a product management expert that knows developers really well. So fun facts about me. Obviously, I love dogs. And Simon stole my thunder, but my first job out of college was testing and yes, removing Clippy. So if anybody needs help, like writing a letter, I've got your back. I'm also from California, like born and raised, love California. When you think of California, a lot of times people think of something like this, right? We've got David Hasselhoff running down the beach. Everybody's tan, they're happy, it's paradise. And we like to think that this is what our sites are like as well, and our teams that we work with, right? Everybody is getting along. Our customers are having the most fabulous, delightful experiences. They can do everything they want. But in reality, California can also be like this, right? So our sites can also be like this. Things go down, checkout doesn't work, a script blocks loading. I mean, Ian gave a whole talk yesterday about how hostile the internet is. So there's always going to be fires, but what I hope I can offer you today is a way to manage your performance all the time so that when these fires happen, there's less damage and you can get back to the beach. So to take a step back, you might be thinking, how is a product manager going to tell me that engineering is similar? So performance and product are actually more similar than they seem on the surface. Both need strategies to help with fires. I spend a lot of time putting out fires. And when I started doing this talk, I just went and looked at some really basic, like Web Performance 101 things. And I found a Web Fundamentals blog by Google, and Jeremy Wagner did a post on why performance matters. He calls out that performance is about improving conversions, retaining users, the user experience, and people. So this is what I do all the time. I improve conversions and revenue. I retain users, and I grow my user base. I'm really focused on the user experience. And ultimately, it comes down to the people that we interact with through our products. And I'm focused on that, and all of you are also focused on that. All of these are part of optimizing a product to achieve business goals. So Tim told us yesterday that performance is a business problem. I want to add to that. Performance is a business role. You guys aren't just engineers anymore. Anybody that works in performance, we've heard all these case studies throughout this conference about how important performance is to business. I saw a lot of hands go up yesterday when they were asked if you wanted a dedicated performance team like Pinterest has. Only a few of you actually had them. So my goal is that you're able to walk away from this talk with a new way to manage performance and hopefully create a business case and treat it like a product so that you can get some of that support. So there's 4 basic strategies that I use for product management in deciding what product to build, what order to do things, and we can also apply these for you guys to be more successful in performance. So the basics, you have to understand. You have to understand the problem, not just at the performance level, but at the business level. You have to understand your users. What are they trying to do when they come to your site or use your app? Why do they even care about being there? What's the value prop of your product? And then understand their pain points, the environment they're using your product in, what device, what connection, everything we've been talking about this whole product is so important, this whole conference is so important. Second, After you understand the problem from all sides, you want to define what a successful solution looks like. You want to make sure you know what it looks like to you and to your business, and most importantly, you have to be able to measure it. You have to prioritize. This is an important step. We'll dive into it later, but you have to know what you're going to do first, and you have to say no. And lastly, communicate. You're going to communicate internally, externally, up, down, all around, across, and it's really, really important. So you can use these basics to know what you need to work on, know what has to be done in order of importance, ensure that everyone understands why your project matters, what their part is, and the importance of their efforts. Then maximize those efforts and impact by making sure you and your team are focused on what matters most to your company, your customers, and ultimately your bottom line. So let's drill in a little more into each of these. So understanding the problem at the business level. You really want to know what are your company's challenges and pain points. What are the business KPIs or key performance indicators and goals that your marketing and product teams, your management, or your board are striving for and being measured against? Make sure you understand who your stakeholders are, what their requirements are, and what metrics they'll be measuring. Your stakeholders are the people in your business who are going to consume your data. They're also going to be your champions. So you really want them to make sure they understand what you're doing and how you can help them. Consider them your internal customers. Understand where you and your team fit in. What can performance do to impact these business goals that you're now aware of? And then understand of those business goals, what are your performance metrics? So Tammy just gave an awesome talk. I will use the word awesome. I am from California. So Tammy just gave an awesome talk about all the different metrics possible and how the best metrics for you are really custom metrics. And then Sarah shared yesterday about Pinterest and their PWT metric. So make sure that you've really thought about and using all the information that you're going to gather, you understand what your performance metrics really are. You need to understand the market and competitors. So I love this quote from Eric Leon at Carnival Cruise Lines. In order to gain market share, we need to have visibility as to how our website compared. So I think everyone in here is probably familiar with a film strip. And we're all good at this here, right? We've done a ton of benchmark analysis. We use RUM. We use Crux. We use Speed Curve, web page test, right? There's a ton of tools out there. How can you go beyond just the basic competitive performance analysis, though? And again, this is back to understanding that larger business problem, right? So you can research the market, understand who your competitors are, who's up and coming, who's maybe declining, what gaps exist between your product and theirs, and what are the user expectations. Maybe someone's changed something and your user expectations have changed. Here's a secret to this. You don't have to do this research yourself. Bug your product manager. They should have this, right? This is their job. But it's also their job to share it, and it's your job to also understand it. There's also case studies, blogs, white papers. We all know this, but in addition to looking at it from a performance perspective, look at it from the market landscape and gather some general goals for your own performance. But again, don't get hung up too much on industry metrics. They're a great guideline, and it's definitely something you need to know about where you stand. But again, it's back to focusing on your own metrics, and you get those with your user data. So how do you understand the user experience? You really need to know that it's not just about the performance. So one of our customers at Nordstrom's talked about a lot of the customer experience is not translated when you're trying to measure performance using page load, right? So Nordstrom's used RUM data, they use synthetic monitoring. They also use customer satisfaction surveys to understand where their customers' frustration points were. I like this guy, he looks very frustrated. I told you I love dogs. So, but also understand what they love about your app or your site, right? Where are you just killing it? And are there lessons learned there that you can take as you work on improving performance and reproduce some of those practices? To continue to understand the customer experience, you want to use both quantitative and qualitative data. So Nordstrom's used the customer satisfaction survey, and that's a great example of a qualitative data. So we've got RUM, right? This is a screenshot from an app that I manage. And RUM, Web Page Test, Synthetic Test, they tell us great data about how our sites are performing, and it's critical. RUM data will tell you everything about your users, what devices, what browsers, where they're coming from, and what experience they're having. They'll also tell you things like bounce rate. When do users just come on your site and leave? But qualitative data, like customer satisfaction scores, NPS scores, or maybe your product team runs a customer advisory board, and you can go get some information or feedback from your users. These are examples of more qualitative data. So in this chart, I see that there's a 49% bounce rate, but I don't know what percentage of happy customers I have, right? Do I have 50% happy customers? Is it like the glass half full or half empty? Maybe I've got 10% happy customers. Maybe, half of those are happy and half of them just didn't, there was a wrong search engine or something. There's other factors that come into understanding how our users are experiencing our site. So it also helps you understand what are the most important elements of your site. So back to Sarah's talk yesterday, she mentioned that there were things that they didn't care about when it came to performance. You need the qualitative data to determine what those things are. So now we understand the business problem, we understand our customers, and we can define what is going to make an impact and how we're going to actually get there. So you want requirements for your success. You want to make sure you can convince stakeholders of the value of your project and the effect you'll have. Laura and Nick talked yesterday about how important this was to create a top-down push for performance instead of having to constantly push back on the business. Like, you can't put this tag on, it's going to impact performance. And I know most of my customers have to have that experience. So by creating a business case and presenting that to your stakeholders, you can really get them on board and start to put the pressure coming down as well. So it gives you that support. You can think of your business case as the requirements or an architecture doc. So you wouldn't start implementing a new feature just willy-nilly without any kind of documentation or requirements. And you need to make sure that you're treating your business case with that same level of importance. You need to make sure, again, are you measuring the right metrics for your company? Tammy, I was going to talk about this, but Tammy did such a great job. I'm just going to move on, but there's a bunch out there, and again, make sure you know what's right for you. So this gets back then to performance is a business role. And you may be thinking, well, it's not my job to do a business case, and why are you giving me more work? I'm not trying to do that, but it's not just someone else's job to understand and own the business impact anymore. It's everyone's job. And you guys should all take this as a compliment, by the way, because it's the work of this community over the last few years that has made the business become aware of how impactful performance really is, and they're paying attention now. So I think Misguided just spoke and said, yeah, everybody paid attention, and then they want you to do more because they see how important it is. So when you're defining your business case, you want to make sure that you're very specific. Your goals have to be measurable. And don't leave room for interpretation. Don't overdo it either. Make sure your goals are actually achievable. If you have grandiose goals, break them down. You can take a crawl, walk, run approach to things as well. And then again, use your data to understand how fast you actually have to be. It may be that you can get down to 1 second, in whatever metric you're measuring yourself against, but maybe you don't need to get that fast. Maybe 2 seconds is fine. So this is an example of a great success story that it's actually from NCC, and we've heard a lot like these. So Cook increased conversion rate by 7% after cutting average page load time by 0.85 seconds. Bounce rate also fell by 7%, and page per session increased by 10%. These are fantastic results, right? But I want to challenge you to think beyond just the traditional performance improvements and metrics and the broader business impact to really garner that stakeholder buy-off. So some examples. Are you going to reduce ops overhead or COGS, cost of goods, right? Will you reduce costly micro outages or downtime? Another one to think about is, will you actually be able to allow your company to expand out to new markets or geographies? Will you increase revenue and then ultimately increase the bottom line? So now you have your measurable goals, you have stakeholder support, and you can go execute. But where do you start? I'm just going to admit, prioritization is a big part of my job. It is really hard. It doesn't seem to get easier. And while I have a lot of opinions, they don't really matter. So I can't just say, well, this sounds good to me. So why is prioritization hard? We're not naturally good at it. And I think everyone in this room is probably pretty type A perfectionist. You know, you're all here because you want to improve things. And it's hard to look at something and say, I'm not going to work on that right now. We want to do everything. None of us want to leave a page running slower or an image unoptimized or, you know, some lame tag on that's causing problems. But this is where all the work we've done up till this point of understanding the problem, having a defined success criteria and business case is so important because that's created the criteria that you're going to use to prioritize. Because again, your opinion is probably irrelevant. Not everybody's, but not all opinions. And again, you have to say no to some things, otherwise you can't be successful. So just personally, I use a scoring system. So I take all the customer feedback, I take my business KPIs, and I attach some weights to them. And then I can take all the features and score them against those weights. The highest scores will naturally bubble to the top, and then that's what the team will go start to work on first. And there's admittedly a lot of criteria that does come into play, but the scoring system just allows me a place to feed it all in and at least mostly remove my opinion from it. Because if I tell my engineering director that I think we should do this, and he's like, well, why? And if I just say, because I think so, he's not really going to listen to me. So again, all that data, everything that you've done with understanding and defining your success, this is the time that you really put it into practice. This is also a place where correlation between business and performance data can come in really handy. So this is an impact score built off some RUM data. And the green represents page load time. So if you were just to think, okay, we're going to speed up the site, let's look at what the slowest pages are, you'd probably start here with, you know, some of these pages down towards the middle of the chart. But what the blue bars actually tell you is which pages most impact revenue. So in actuality, by bringing in the business correlation and the business KPIs, you know that you actually need to start with these pages over here on the left, which, while they don't have great performance, aren't necessarily the slowest. So that's where you're going to begin and get the most bang for your buck, start to get those early wins with the business. So again, ideally we'd like all pages to be faster, but what will actually contribute to those business goals that we've defined? So now we fully understand the problem, the criteria for success, we've defined it, and we know exactly what we're going to do to start reaching those goals. And we heard yesterday how important communication is from both In Brown and Pinterest, and I 100% echo this. So these are my dogs. This is Ziggy. He is a 1-year-old Weimaraner. He has crazy amounts of energy. We can't get him to sit still for a photo, right? This is why there's 3 of them, and he's moving in all of them. This was my sister's attempt to get a picture of my dog. Then this is Otis. And this is pretty much how Otis is, like all the time. So I don't communicate with Otis and Ziggy in the same way. And you can't communicate with your audiences in the same way. So I use different frequencies, different tones, different content, different emphasis, different volumes, and different repetition of words. And now that you're not just talking to engineers and ops, you need to be able to communicate to executives, to management, to support teams, to sales, and to customers. So much like I need to communicate with Ziggy and Otis differently, you need to understand how to communicate with your different audiences to be effective. This effective communication is so important because you need the cooperation of all these different groups to actually achieve your goals. There's a lot going on around you. This can be you. It's blonde because it's, me in this instance, but change that to however you want it to be. If you want purple hair, go for it. But you need the cooperation of everybody in this, crazy thing going on to actually be successful. So all of these people are on their own paths. They have their own priorities, and it's up to you to communicate with them effectively, to align them, prioritize them, inspire them, make sure everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to be working on, what their part is, track against those deliverables, and then report back on them. So everyone can walk out of a meeting except the person who needs to drive consensus. And in this case, that's you. So you have to find out how to communicate, negotiate, clearly define everyone's roles, and communicate all of that to everyone here. And maybe your slide is not as busy, maybe it's actually busier. So once you've done all that, what's next? Measure your results. Now you're doing stuff, you're getting stuff out there in the wild. So test out your solutions. Maybe you A/B test, you have a beta program. Recollect that quantitative and qualitative feedback and data that you had, and then see how you've done against the goals that you've defined. You want to look back before you look forward. So we'll get to that great PR campaign about how awesome you've done, but just like a fire drill for an issue, you want to do a postmortem, and you want to be honest with yourself. So how did you perform against what you defined as your initial requirements? What went well? And what could be different going forward? If you can't mark a task clearly done, it's not the end of the world, but you want to make sure that you address it. So understand why it's not complete and what happened. Maybe it just didn't get done. Maybe other things took longer and it was a lower priority and it fell out of scope. Maybe the requirements changed and you don't even need to work on it anymore. But either way, don't let a partially finished task just fall through the cracks and become more technical debt. It will come back to haunt you. Make sure you communicate out your results and thank your team. This is really important so all your stakeholders see your success and you'll have the continued support of your project, as well as gaining support from other groups, and of course, increasing morale. So celebrate like Ziggy would. This is Ziggy at his first birthday party. I do throw birthday parties for my dogs. One day I'll have a kid and they'll be really sad, so. And then lather, rinse, repeat. So you have this great process now. You can go back, make sure, are we still clear on what the business goals are? It doesn't have to be the same level of effort it was the first time. Make sure that your success results are still defined correctly. And move down the list in your prioritization, double check. Has anything changed? If something changed in understanding and definition, you may need to relook at your prioritization, or you likely will have to. And then again, continue that communication loop all the way through the entire process. Now you can just iterate on your project, reconfirm your priorities, and move on down the list. But you have a bought-in strategy because you've created a business case, you've communicated to stakeholders, you have the support from the business all around you, up and around, remember. You have a data-backed plan, and you have a proven process for success. So thank you very much. Again, I'm Lauren Younger. My Twitter is @LLYounger. Also, if you want more pictures of Otis and Ziggy, they're on Instagram. Same handle. So thank you very much.